Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. On Thursday, August 12th, I am live once again in Mexico, and it looks like we are coming through live on the broadcast. So great to be here with everyone tonight. I know it's interesting times in the market, a lot going on, and much of what I've been seeing, hard to put into words. Don't have exact answers on a lot of things. I'm translating and decoding a lot of information as quickly as possible. Perhaps one way of putting it, it feels like I'm learning 40 years of Russian overnight and trying to make sense of it. I'm not meant to be cryptic in any of the posts or messages that I've been sending out. I mean, really, it's just a matter of trying to make sense of what I'm hearing, verify as quickly as possible. I do believe good things are on the way in silver. I'm quite curious myself what may be planned for Sunday night, the 50-year anniversary of the Nixon shock, when they took the rest of the gold backing away from the dollar. I cannot say for sure that something will happen on Sunday, but I mean, I guess at least as I interpret everything I'm seeing, and also factoring in that trading, this is something I was fortunate to learn being trained at a good shop, which I think most people haven't gotten the chance to think about as much. But it's like, imagine in poker, if you only play when you have pocket aces, and eventually everybody else realizes, and then, you know, they'll know you have pocket aces if you're actually getting in the hand. So there's if you wait till something moves, then the price has already moved. So there is no for sure 100% as I know in trading. Yet as I look at the different clues that I am seeing out there, I have been buying probably the most silver I've ever bought in a week in my life. I bought this week. I bought a lot of call options on silver miners, which, again, to be clear, that is not in any way legal financial advice. I'm just sharing what I've done. You're going to have to decide what's appropriate for you. Maybe the short version is that I think all these things come to an end one day, as we always expected. And it seems like that day is getting close, whatever that means. But how about I just hop in, take some questions, and answer those as best I can. I think we'll have Rob Kientz and Andy Schectman coming on in about 15 minutes to give you their perspective. I'll explain why I tried to call Andy on Monday and suggested him get any inventory he could, because as I think a couple steps ahead, it seems to me like it's not just silver, it's all these other things that you're seeing happening in the world where you see government officials lie. You see stuff happen, the president, oh, well, we'll get it on the next watch. Donald Rumsfeld announced 2.1 trillion missing dollars on September 10th. Never got an answer. Oh, well, we're looking for it. A bureaucracy, this or that. It's all these things are set up with the nameless they that really our entire lives, we've never got answers to any of these questions. I was running from the dust cloud on September 11th. We've never really gotten any of the information, although one of the things that has raised my attention that some of you may have noticed, there's things appearing and disappearing from YouTube right now. If you're wondering why I published those George Bush videos yesterday, that footage was not there before. I don't know if it was necessarily put there yesterday, but those are things I've looked at and studied. It's like all of a sudden we're getting new footage from the Pentagon. For 20 years, they only let us see one camera, which showed no plane part. Now they're releasing new stuff like that. And I think it's all tied together. One last note, and then I will get to the questions. Probably saw the Cliff High video I posted last night. I get it. Not everybody agrees with Cliff or is interested in that, and I can understand that. I've factored it in. I find it incredibly fascinating to listen to. And one of the things that has prepared me for what's happening now is that it was really for a couple of months. He was saying that this debate over whether people should take this treatment or that treatment for things that are going on, or whether certain things are dangerous, or whether certain things are intentional, I think a lot of that is coming to a head. I found it intriguing how clearly he detailed that in advance. Similar to what got me into silver investing, investigating and investing in silver. When I was sitting on the trading floor in 2009, I guess it was, housing bubble had just collapsed. I just graduated Wharton's business school, and I'm thinking it's kind of odd that I hadn't seen this. When I read Peter Schiff's book, Crash Proof, it wasn't just that he said what was happening. He said it to the letter why it was going to happen. All these other guests that you've seen on the show, Kranzler was in front of that. There are certain reasons why things build. And I'm seeing that a lot now, and I'm going to try and put that into perspective as best as I can. So I will start taking some questions, see who's got a question in there. Type your questions in now. Jay Delaney saw lol, my pet goat. Someone who's kind of didn't plan to, but ended up studying a lot of hypnosis. I grew up with a lot of energy, negative energy in my childhood. So it's like a lot of the things I've done have been more out of trying to find peace in the world. And when I saw that thing yesterday, that is a disturbingly disgusting hypnosis, whatever that woman was doing to those children. If you look at Bush, he almost looks like he's sedated in his own right. But again, with the thing with George Bush, you see that for 30 years, they told us George Bush vomited on the Prime Minister of Japan. Then we see not only did his wife have a napkin over his nose and mouth within seconds, we see the CIA acting out the video. And they released the footage for whatever reason. So make of that what you will as I look for some questions. There we go. We had lots of hope in Basel III. Were we wrong? I don't think so. And the way I've come to understand it was not that Basel III was supposed to be, all right, announce to the world that gold and silver are going to shoot up, but more that it was kind of like, it's time to get on side now because this is coming. And then you look at how the short positions have been reduced, I believe in both gold and silver. I think I have silver pulled up here. Give me 1 second. And all right, this isn't the greatest chart to put this in perspective, but here's the red line. In fact, you can see here's June. And if you look, I can't move my mouse over there, but about halfway through, COTLC, and there's a C in parentheses. So they were short negative 71,000 contracts in June, or maybe that was the end of June, I guess, when Basel III was. So here, 57. And today we see August. Well, I guess this isn't the best chart, but you see it's been getting reduced from 71,000 mid-June, now seeing about 50,000 that they're short. Craig Hemke has done some articles mentioning the bank participation report showing that they have been covering. Again, I can't know this for sure, but we're looking at clues. Does it make sense to me that the banks could realize that this Ponzi scheme was coming to an end? I think everything we've talked about for the last couple months of how scared they were, that they mentioned it in the LBMA report. They send Jeff Christian out more often to lie than normal. And, you know, the miscount, all these things, again, just like September 11th, unanswered questions, and the government, the people who claim to be answering them always give you the Three Stooges routine. They don't know what's happened. So can I say for sure that Basel III is that they're unwinding and transitioning over? No. But would I say there's 0% probability? No. Would I sell the put at 10% probability? No, I think it's higher than that. I think it's hard for all of us to imagine something when we've waited 41 years. Some of us haven't even been alive in 1980. But it has to end. Math is what it is. I think you can see the signs of that. I am increasingly thinking we're going to see movement in the price, perhaps shocking movement in the price, possibly this year. Or let me put it like this. I am trading as if it will be this year. But I've also set things up so that if I have silver, whether it's this year or next year, it doesn't matter. So I would say perhaps maybe now is a time to feel hopeful and excited. Everything I've come across, I don't know if this will make sense, but it's like as if a lot of wrongs are going to be righted. And that's the feeling I've had, and I've been discussing and talking with people, trying to not, I don't know. So I'll call Rob Kientz, I'll call Yara, I'll call Andy, I'll call the other people. What are you seeing? I talked to Greg Hemke yesterday. Everyone's seeing it, it seems, in their own way. And not everybody, but anyway, there's a great question for Chris Scott. What happened to the money we donated to fund the lawsuit? That's all still there. A big chunk of it is in a 1,000-ounce silver bar. We're converting the rest of that out of cash. Actually, Yara, maybe we can make a note. We can make sure whatever is left in there, we get out of cash tomorrow. Interesting. Here's an interesting thought about the CFTC. Let me set this up properly. It's like 10 years ago when I started saying the silver market was manipulated. Everybody looked at me like it was a Fruit Loop. So I get that, but that's an example of something that seems extreme. Many people said there's 0% probability, which I find is where people get themselves into trouble. Nassim Taleb wrote that book about tail risk. So I'm not saying this is what's happening, but as I've been retraining my mind in this past week in particular to consider all possibilities. Who knows? Maybe Santa Claus is going to be the next Fed chairman. I don't think that's likely, but maybe it's a 0.00001 probability. Or maybe Jerome Powell puts on a Santa hat. But there's a difference between saying something's impossible and something has a possibility. And I guess just one thing, as I notice what I'm seeing in other areas of life, I still have not heard an answer from the CFTC. And maybe we'll call this extremely low probability or possibility, but what if there actually is someone now? I do get the feeling they knew who I am and they've seen that the evidence is there. Maybe Ross is doing something, maybe he's not. Maybe whoever's checking to make sure Ross is doing his job is looking at the evidence. You'd like to think that someday we'll have justice in our country. And what I tried to do was write the evidence so it would be as clear as possible that if we ever got to that point, I mean, I would think for an honest jury, judge, and courtroom, again, I'm not a lawyer, but with the stuff that, I mean, you've seen it all, I would think it would be a pretty straightforward case. I mean, these guys have already been caught. So again, in the realm of things I don't know, but I guess it just, I'm noticing the thoughts that pop to my mind, not saying they're accurate, but that was something I had at least thought about where, you know, what if, I mean, because we're seeing this stuff about the election coming back up. All right, there was a miscount or it was rigged. Well, if that's the case, and we have books detailing, the CIA has even detailed how they rig elections all over the globe. Is it impossible they would rig it here? In fact, as I'm hearing more and more evidence, there's not really much question in my mind. So if that's the case, and someone, that would be a felony. We saw Nixon almost got impeached because he was scooping on the records. If the thing was cheated, if we still, there's no point of having a United States or a country if everybody knows it was cheated, yet nothing happens. Is something happening? My guess is we'll find out soon enough. I'm starting to see signs that lead me to believe that it is. Anyway, so, but the money is all still there. We did put most of it into a 1,000-ounce silver bar. And the link, I think, is in the description to all these videos. So if somebody would like to contribute to that, I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I have no problem making the accounting public, or maybe Yar can help with that. I want people to feel comfortable that the money is there, because it is. And I've also been organizing a lot of my legal notes. We've been having meetings with the people on the legal team who are helping with that. And, you know, it just takes time. I'm finding the location for Silverfest, which still is going to be October 26th to 31st, possibly the place I'm staying now, but a lot going on and a lot of things happening. Fortunately, there's a lot of people helping and volunteering. Kev Curie is interested in silver, not Nixon. I would suggest becoming interested in Nixon because you understand silver a lot more when you understand the history. I understand if people want me to just come on here and say silver is going to do this on that date, then I would be lying to you. For the same reasons you're watching this now, if you think I was right that the silver market is manipulated, I'm following the same process now. I'm not going to come out and tell you something that I'm guessing unless I say, hey, this is a guess. And at least the way I've been able to find out the other things, it's through that same style of analysis. I'm not trying to be vague, but I'm also trying to be responsible and sift through a lot of information that I can't know for sure is true or not, but I'm noticing the feelings that I'm getting and confirming as much as possible. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Total Lutter Nutter says the game is rigged. If we start to win, they change the rules. They will try, but I don't know. I think that's dangerous when you just always assume the bad guy will win. Maybe you're right, maybe you're not, but it makes a hard fishbowl that you get stuck in. I don't know, 10 years ago when I started this, I never imagined we'd be here. I never imagined I'd have a YouTube channel. I never imagined I'd be doing any of this. So I would suggest that I get the frustration. I can understand how challenging it's been to wait. I've lived it with you. I've gotten clobbered financially multiple times in the past decade. I don't think I ever came on here and told you it'd be easier, straightforward. And I can't tell you what to do, but I'm sharing what I'm seeing, and I will promise you that this is honest information, my best thoughts that I've been able to come up with. So anyway, who else has another question? McQuest, Chris, what do you think could happen with the SDRs at the end of the month? Hopefully they won't exist. I haven't heard much about SDRs lately. Let me put it like this. I would be prepared for anything. Any false flags, stuff like that. I think it's like the bottom of the ninth, and they're going to try and cheat their way to the very end. So I don't know if there's something planned with SDRs, but I think there's also a point where they can plan certain things, but that doesn't mean that they're going to work. These guys, remember, they're idiots. I mean, look at George Bush, both of them. They were also financing Nazi activity with their Brown Brothers Harriman, so not good people. Probably willing. I mean, these are the same guys who brought you MK Ultra. It's not unconnected, even if some people don't want to hear that. So anyway, Andy Parker, what exactly is an EFP, and can you break it down in construction worker terms? Just imagine it's essentially another paper contract. It's like another futures contract where exchange for physical. You get a receipt. In that book, one of the books I was reading about the Hunt brothers, they had done a couple exchange for physicals shortly before the price started skyrocketing. I don't get the feeling that they were trying to corner the market. In fact, I do feel confident that had the COMEX and the CFTC not changed rules back then, the price of silver was clearly going a lot higher than 50. So anyway, I'm going to look at some questions. What's Arcadia spot price? I saw this in your tweet. What is Arcadia spot price? A lot higher. I mean, I'm not selling my silver at 30 bucks. Another one of our projects that we are moving forward. Yes, I see the super chats, Yara. Okay. Is some sort of exchange, kind of like a COMEX, but unfraudulent. Have talked to Reggie Middleton about that, have been mapping things out. It's one of the projects that is ongoing. And I would say what's really exciting to me is that, yeah, there's some things that aren't ideal, but for anyone who wants to make money, or, I mean, there's plenty of things that need fixing. And I mean, it's kind of like when you hear those stories of like someone comes in, the market had been destroyed, but they, brought it back together and made a fortune. I think it's really a great time for that. So if anybody's interested in things like that, we are starting to add to the team and expand. Also, I'm hiring bass, drums, and keyboard right now for the Silverfest show. Also have some new music things going on. So a lot of fun things happening, and we'll be looking forward to sharing more about that. So maybe we will have the Arcadia spot price, but I still feel good that we'll be able to tighten the spreads if that doesn't happen on its own shortly. Frank says, Chris, are they slamming precious metals to buy up the shorts? I think so. I think that's what they've been doing ever since February. It really accelerated back then. And the best way I read that is that imagine, like, the thing's going to blow. So, I mean, if they've been committing felonies for 40 years, why not do it a couple more months? Hammer the stuff, get the prices low, get out of those contracts as much as possible. Especially, I'm sure they knew what was going on with Basel III, so they have the full story there. I don't get access to that, but I mean, let me put it this way. I can't see it fully, but I'd be 80 to 90% happy, and that's what you saw for the last 3 months, 4 months since February. Justin, if crap hits the fan, you cannot feed your family with PSLV. I'd actually like to make a note about that one. Some Cliff High mentioned that made me think about it. He was mentioning it's good to have dollars, not like maybe a lot, but if the grid goes down, and I've been hearing things of that nature, like be prepared if you had to go on a camping trip for 2 or 3 weeks. So have extra water, have some extra food. More than anything, to remain calm. I think it's going to be a good healing is the feeling I get. And I remember that, but that was one of the things I remember from being in Austin when the storm and the power went off. It got scary there for about an hour because you couldn't get food. All the places were closed. You couldn't even the gas stations were closed because the power was out. You couldn't use a credit card there. There'd be 1 or 2 places that would open and everyone would flood in there. And I know some people are like, well, you can't buy food in a crisis with cryptos. Well, if I hadn't had cash, I don't know if I would have gotten very far with gold or silver either. So I would say, I know we get passionate about the different investments, but I don't know that it needs to be binary. Have some cash on hand. Like right now I have a bunch of extra dollars, pesos, silver, other stuff. And anyway, with that said, to help answer the hard questions, the great Rob Kientz, Auditor Rob of goldsilverpros.com, is logging into the show. And there he is, looking very sharp and brilliant, as is, I don't think you can help it, Rob, personally, but how are you tonight, sir?
Doing fine. How are you doing, Chris?
I am doing quite well. And I don't know if you were listening in the background to the first part of the show, but you and I have talked plenty in the past week. And again, I shared my perspective, but that's why it's great to have you on here. You've heard how I feel. You've seen what you're seeing. You've talked to other people, and what can you share?
I think it's interesting times for sure in the precious metals market. It looks as though, when we had that Sunday night smash, it sure as heck looked to me like it was a concerted effort to kind of bring the price of silver down, gold and silver down. And it's the same thing we've seen 100 times, but now it's like it's revolving around certain news events. They use news events as an excuse. It gets hammered down. People come on my show and say, they think it was the news event. I'm like, okay, I mean, that's a valid opinion, but to see gold flash crash $100 in the span of just a few minutes, and that's never been, that doesn't happen after a good jobs report, especially when we're sitting at so low unemployment overall. I mean, you have to take things in perspective.
Yeah, and especially Rob, speaking of inflation, I saw a video. Apparently, Jerome Powell had the audacity to say that not only isn't what he's doing inflationary, but he doesn't see any evidence of that. And I'm wondering, did he not see the latest inflation prints, which are more than double their mandate? I mean, or maybe it just is what it is. They're going to lie to the very end. But Rob, are you have any questions still on the inflation, what's going on there? Or are you pretty much clear?
Well, the video that you put on Twitter was pretty funny because it was double speak. It was classic. Well, it's rising now, but it's transitory and it's not going to affect it later, but it's not also going to go back to the way it was. And it's like, okay, which is it? Are you setting a new floor for prices or not? And he was trying to speak out of both sides of his mouth. And, you know, he's not a stupid guy. None of the Fed chairs have been.
Well, come on, Rob. Let's not be so hasty.
They know what's going on. They just don't want to spook the markets. And they're, you know, he's between a rock and a hard place because he can't do anything. He's in a position of if he tightens or raises rates, it's going to crash the economy. You saw that in 2018 fourth quarter had a 20% stock correction. That doesn't work. He doesn't want to ease too much because it's going to blow the bubble up worse. So what do? If he eases too much, you could cause runaway inflation, and they don't want that. And so it's a tough position for him to be in, which is why you're going to hear him try to say, take both sides of the argument at one time. And you as a listener just have to be able to read between the lines and what's really going on.
Well, speaking of which, and shifting for a moment to important things, Rob, any thoughts on our silver chopper Ben that we are minting here? Would you like anything you could share on that?
Yeah, I've seen this before as you were designing it, and the detail is just ridiculous. I love the big smile he has on his face as he's throwing the dollars out of the helicopter. That's classic. What a classic piece.
Well, the first 50 are being minted as we speak. Last I heard, Rob, the propellers do actually spin, which is obviously important. And it's so important that even the great Andy Schectman, Grandpa up after bedtime, joining us. Andy, you must have seen the silver chopper Ben. I know you already want one. And Andy, I believe, has joined us on the audio. Andy, are you there?
Yeah, I am. God, is that amazing? That is amazing. Oh my God, is that so cool? You actually did it.
Well,
Chris, are we gonna get one of these for coming to Silverfest?
Absolutely, we are, Rob.
well, at the moment, we're starting with a limited edition of 50. Now here you can see some important stuff because you can see the definition of the $100 bills. My artist, he asked me if I thought they should be singles or hundreds. I think Ben would definitely, actually, we may have to revise this, have him throw $1,000 bills out of the plane. You never know what he might be doing behind the scenes. Perhaps hundreds not enough, but yeah, that'll be a paperweight on your desk. We're going to auction one off before Silverfest. I'm going to give one away at Silverfest. Looks like this bad boy is going to be about 5 or 6 ounces. And especially when the silver price starts to move, I think that's quite exciting. And Andy, any final thoughts on the silver chopper Ben, which is now closer to spinning towards your desk before we get your perspective on what has been happening with silver this week?
It's just amazing. It's one of the neatest things I've ever seen. I mean, I'm speechless. That is, I want a lot of them. I'd like to sell those. Those are incredible.
Well maybe you'll get your chance if, you gotta be nice to your buddy Silver Chris over here, but we have a question from Tim Goodson. How much fiat for a chopper, Ben? I don't know. From what I'm seeing in the metals markets, you might want to get that soon. But Andy, I'd like to get your opinion on this, and Rob, you can chime in too. But as you know, I called the great Jana Schectman Monday. I called you first. You wouldn't answer. I called Jana and said, I would highly recommend if you have extra people to get them in because it's becoming harder for me to see how the dealers aren't very close to running out of physical product. Because as I was thinking about all these things for the past week, and I've been talking to you almost every day, I'm saying, am I seeing this right? Am I seeing that right? adding all the different clues I got, I think it was somewhat telling. I couldn't even get you on the phone until a day later, Tuesday night. That was when you were eating. I'm like, Andy, sit down. You need to hear this. And you still didn't call me back the next day because you had the phones ringing. And then I'm thinking, if this is what's happening behind the scenes, when people start to realize that, because it's like this efficient market hypothesis that everybody gets things and prices them in. Humans take times to think and digest and then share information. So again, you're the one answering the phones. Anything you could tell us about any of that would be really helpful to hear.
This is the closest it's been to the silver squeeze at the beginning of February, end of January. I've gotten somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 or 800 emails in the past day and a half. Phones are ringing off the hook. The smash down in silver is acting as nothing as an incentive and a subsidy for people out there who've been listening to you and Rob and Bix and everyone else, Jean-Claude, everyone who's been talking about silver forever. And they're not dissuaded or bummed out by it like you might think they would be. In fact, if anything, it is reinforcing their motivation, to the point where I've been sending emails 2 nights in a row up to 4 in the morning. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, some of your people who listen to this show, I probably emailed as late as 3, 4 in the morning last night. That's how busy it is. And that's an unusual thing, but very similar to what we saw at the beginning of February.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense because especially the whole thing with the V and the C sickness, and I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I think there's a lot of people who are starting to come to the conclusion that something quite horrific has been done. And actually, we do have some breaking news here. I will pull up. And this is kind of why, like, I don't know if it's going to be like, hey, silver's going up now, but look at this. Here we have U.S. Embassy in Kabul urges Americans to leave Afghanistan immediately. Right below this, what does George Bush have to say about Afghanistan? How much money did Bush and Cheney make on blood? This Bush and Cheney cult, either we're not understanding something or they've done things as the alleged leaders of the country that to me are no different than what we've seen out of other terrorist regimes. Stalin, Hitler, if what it is appearing, they knew there were no weapons of mass destruction. They went and started the war anyway. That's murder. That's genocide. And to me, it seems like, especially when I saw those videos showing how doctored life is, they said Bush was vomiting, got a napkin over his mouth. And then you see the CIA with the real camera footage that they didn't show anyone for 30 years. I think we're starting to see, and here, this is why I decided, you know what? We had money that was owed to it. And Andy, you can confirm that I told you whatever money you had money from that I've earned from you. I said, put it into anything. Don't wait. Don't worry if it's $2 over spot or $3 over spot. I want it out. And these are the reasons why. Here, police in Italy started marching with protesters against vaccine passports. The people are standing up all over the world. Well, how does this get reversed tomorrow? Now the police are turning on the government.
Wow.
Okay, I understand most people haven't seen this because the mainstream media, which we know lies, doesn't show it. But it's the same as the silver manipulation. When you realize it's a Ponzi scheme, that doesn't go closely. And it looks like everything we know is government, finance, big pharma, big oil, all of it. Bernie Madoff is confessing now, and the rest of us are finding out. That's the impression I'm getting. And I think that's why other people are like, shit, this might be my last chance to get silver. But Andy, tell me if you think I'm missing anything or if that's not grounded or founded or Rob, please, I'm asking. That's what I keep coming back with.
You're not missing anything, and this is the tip of the iceberg. Everywhere you look, there's chaos, there's uncertainty, there's fear, and what's different is that there is an expansion into the mainstream. The number of people who are listening and understanding are growing. It's really spectacular, and they're also they're also awakened to the way that the market is manipulated, and they're using it as a subsidy. It's when you talk about, look, I've been saying for the last year, Chris, that the market's going to define itself by an inability to source product. Ultimately, it will. And this is the reason why, because there's so few people globally invested in precious metals, but they're all waking up at the same time. And the one common thread is that the currencies globally are being debased and destroyed. And where are the alternatives? And when people wake up and run to the one or two only alternatives that there are, especially those with value, like that, it's gone globally. There's 6 major mints of the world, and when they run out of product, it's over. US, Canada, Austria, Australia, South Africa, United States. When they run out of product, or one or two of them run out of product, it's over. And look at the number of people right here that are uprising. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You look at what's happening in Afghanistan. I mean, all the trillions of dollars spent, people injured and killed, and the US pulls out, and the Taliban have already taken over almost the entire country. For what? This is just emblematic of everything that's happening right now. So yes, no, you're not far off at all, Chris. You're really not.
So Andy, specific to silver, you said, all the dealers count on 5 or 6 places. You're one of the dealers. You're one of the larger dealers, I would say. Are you sitting around saying, oh, well, I don't think there's anything going on here. I'll just assume I'll have enough product next month? Or what did you actually order whatever inventory is available? Or what did you do in that sense?
We constantly are. And yes, we did. We re-upped as much as we possibly can. And we are, it's really been our central focus since February 2020 in securing products. So yes, we have. We're extended as far as we humanly possibly can to have as much stuff in stock and ready to ship as humanly possible. We have a nice supply right now, but really the thing is this: when you see prices get slammed down every single time, what happens is that people are wise to what's happening. They flock in, they empty all of the dealers' inventory, and then it disappears and premiums go straight up. And these are the best premiums we've seen in literally a year on everything. So not only is it the lowest spot price we've seen in 2021, the very best premiums. So yeah, I think this is a sweet spot. And if you're right, and which I have no doubt that your judgment is spot on, this is the eye of the hurricane right here.
All right, and looks like we have another headline here. I will pull that up and take a look here. Taliban not only seized 100 US Humvees, also several drones, billions of US taxpayer going to Islamist extremists. I'm not going to sit here by any means and claim that I have the first clue what's happening there, but Iranians irked over pick reminiscent of 1943 Allied Summit. That's why, again, I'm glad I'm not someone's financial advisor. But to me, there's something going on when you start seeing this everywhere. Rob, what do you think?
Well, I think you're seeing geopolitical realignment in the world. And I think people are getting tired of what the US and the Western military have done. They're pissed off and they're tired of it. And a lot of the old relics of the previous Western system, the UN, the military alliances, NATO, are starting to come under a lot of pressure. You see China and Russia openly opposing, the Western system. And I think you see people up around the world. It started years ago with the Arab Spring, right? You had the Arab Spring and you had them organizing over Facebook and social media, and they tried to shut that down by shutting down social media, but it doesn't stop the people. They find a way. People find a way to meet, to talk, to discuss, to question their governments. And this is what our founding fathers told us to do. They said, always question authority, never assume that they're doing what is good for you. And it's the right of the people to tell their governments, we don't like what you're doing. And I think that, when the Constitution came about and then you started seeing republics pop up all over the world, I think you saw that message of freedom. And I think that's still imbued within a lot of cultures. And it's gone too far with a lot of the technocracy and the control, not only in the West, but a lot of other places too. And I think people are starting to protest that. And you're not going to see it in the media. The US media is long gone. They're owned by the corporate interests. You're never going to get a fair shake from them. And anytime they put anything on the screen, it's spin control. And you're not going to see the protests and things. Protests have been going on for France. We have family in France. Protests have been going on in France for forever. And where the hell is that in the US news? And it's not just anything having to do with the vaccines. It was the yellow vests. It was the financial suppression. It's the government and Macron trying to tell people how to live their lives. And, you saw the rise of Trump. You saw the rise of other more freedom-oriented candidates around the world, whether you like them or not personally. They were the people's choice, right? So we are seeing that people awakening. And the question is, what's next? And I was just having this conversation with my account manager who graduated from Harvard, has a degree looking at sociopolitical. She's a political scientist, basically. And we were talking about it. And she says what she sees happening is more of what we saw in Portland and other places around the world, people protesting, is going to occur, but it's going to be different groups. You're going to see the rise of individual groups of people saying, we don't like this system. This system is not working for us. And that's going to continue. And not only in France, not only the Arab Spring that we saw years ago, it's going to come to the US, it's going to come to a city near you. And, that's what's going to go on. And then the people are pissed off and tired. And as these old control systems age and they try to, to save them, that conflict between the people and their governors is going to continue to increase.
Well, Andy, one of the reasons why I think Rob is going to be similar to the way people thought of Warren Buffett last century, that this century they'll have Rob, because as he's saying that, we have a new piece of news. I can't confirm this, but just in, Prime Minister Trudeau plans to ask the Governor General of Canada to dissolve Parliament on Sunday, triggering a snap election. So, Andy, I'm curious, for people that are interested in silver or watch this, and as they're seeing us talk about why I bought a lot of silver this week, at least as much as I physically could, and then they see these headlines rolling out, God only knows, I'm assuming this didn't just happen randomly. There are things that lead up to this. So based on your 30 years of experience doing this, what do you imagine your business is going to be like tomorrow?
If it's anything like, well, if it is anything like it has been the last 2 days, insanity. True insanity. I mean, when I tell you I'm working till 4:30 in the morning, that means I don't stop from 8:30 in the morning answering phone calls and emails. And I'm just one person. I have several brokers doing the exact same thing. I can only imagine what the online companies are doing. You would never know, based upon the price, what the demand is in the retail industry. Now, I will say this, it hasn't been like this all summer. It's like all of a sudden, and it's funny, you called me several days ago, and literally within a day of you saying that, almost like you read the tea leaves, it snapped. And it's just like it was in early February right now, where, where every single one of my brokers is getting between 100 and 300 emails and phones ringing off the hook. And we're just one cog in the wheel. So if it's anything like it's been the last few days, I'm sure it'll be very crazy.
Andy, you told me last night that there was only enough metal to go around. Was it like 300 to 500 million between most of the big US dealers?
Yeah, I mean, that was a guess. That was a pretty good guess, but I think that's about right.
Even if it were $1 billion, Andy, in our multi-trillion-dollar economy where the Fed is printing trillions of dollars, what is it now, a month or a week? I don't even know what the hell it is. That's nothing. Okay.
Right.
That is zero when people panic and run to go get the metals, which they will. I guarantee you people are going to panic and go get the metals, because what the hell else are they going to do? They have to eat, they have to clothe their children. They have to have something of value so that they can survive in this world. You're not going to crappy ass bonds. I saw a story today, I forget where I saw it, $180 billion worth of negative yielding corporate bonds in the US. Negative yielding debt has come to the United States. Who in the hell buys negative yielding debt? I mean, what the fuck is all that about? I'm not gonna pay someone to hold their fucking debt that they're not gonna be able to pay off anyway. Where are they gonna go? And you're even if it's double what you said, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, if you do not get your metals now, and I've been saying this for a year, I've been screaming this top of my lungs. If you don't get your metals now, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to get them. You're just
Rob,
not.
can you tell me why the hell would anyone even buy a negative yielding corporate bond? What's the
don't
incentive
know.
for real? What is it? I can't even wrap my head around it. Why would you do it?
If you're
I
getting
think-
to lie or cheat people, which is what happens regularly on Wall Street. We've documented it left, right, and center. Rob, you're talking about what people, right, let me phrase it like this. Rob, I wonder, for anyone who's been watching for the last 45 minutes now, heard what we talked about, you know, and make of that what you will, then heard the headlines, then heard what you were saying. Then why don't we top this on, heard about supply chain issues. China starts shutting down world's third busiest port. That doesn't seem like something that's going to help this situation. People are wondering if the reason the recent presidents who decided to go against the vaccine have died. And there's a lot of stories here about things with the things that people are taking. So I guess that's what I wonder as I've been thinking about the way we process information. Because again, I don't want anybody to do anything because I say it, but I would suggest go verify these things. Look and see what you're seeing. And unless somehow this is all fabricated, maybe like the mainstream news has done for the last 50 or 100 years, would you think someone is more likely to be interested in buying silver if they've been watching for the last 45 minutes now than when we started?
Of course, yeah, and as this spreads, because it's the network effect, Chris. It started. Wall Street silver came on the backs of what you and I and a lot of other people have been talking about for a long time, and they exploded onto the scene. It goes in waves, and then think about the network effect of 120,000 more people. Some of them obviously already followed all of us. We've been talking about it for 10 years, but now that's 120,000. What's the next wave going to look like? It's going to be 250,000, 500,000, million people. And then they tell one person and then it explodes. It's going to be exponential. The more people that pick up on this story, the faster it's going to be. We're in the quickening. I call this the quickening after the Highlander movies. You know, with the Highlanders, the guys with the swords, the immortals battle each other and they have the quickening where everything happens very fast and it accelerates because there's less and less of them. That's what's happening here. It's the quickening. It's the quickening, the end of the economy as we know it. And as more people wake up, if you wait, you're battling more people for less chairs when that music stops. So you've got to go now. You have to go now.
Rob, now that makes sense to me, but what if somebody, for example, saw this headline where a Marine rebukes the defense secretary, no mandatory vaccinations for my Marines. General David Berger on Monday rebuked Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's edict requiring all armed forces to submit to the COVID-19 vaccines. Said a source in office who overheard a heated conversation. This guy doesn't look like somebody I would want to poke in the face. He looks pretty serious. And if this article is accurate, and if we see more articles, which I've seen plenty, and I hear about people getting COVID even after they have the vaccine. And there's a lot of people who, you know what? Fuck YouTube censorship. Throw me off if you want. But anyone with common sense, when you listen to Anthony Fauci, this guy's a bigger fucking liar than Ben Bernanke or Jerome Powell. He uses the same script. They asked him, oh, well, when is it safe to take the mask off? So when the death rate comes over to what number? And he sounds like you're asking Powell when they're going to raise interest rates. Oh, well, it depends on, okay, what does it depend on? But he can't answer it. So either he's telling the truth or no, we know he's not telling the truth. Because, for example, last year when he said we have to go to the lockdown, what he didn't mention was the day before he had written an article in the New England Journal of Medicine, which he hoped nobody would read and most people didn't, but I did, to confirm it. That's why I say the things I do, because I've confirmed them, or else I say that I have not. But in the thing that he doesn't tell anybody about, he says it was the exact same as the flu. So he lied. He's been caught lying repeatedly, same as Bush and Cheney have been caught lying repeatedly, as Powell, bankers, Jamie Dimon, Ben Bernanke have all been lying. So, you know, we get used to it, but at some point, why would Anthony Fauci be lying? What is it that he's lying to cover up? I think the world is increasingly understanding the answer. And it's one of those things, it's kind of like Ross Benham. I wrote that letter not for Ross Benham. I wrote it for everybody who's watching. So you could see how obvious it is that this man has not been doing his job. Okay, it tamped down. Well, is it going to get tamped down tomorrow? Is it going to get tamped down the other day, the next day? Did the people at the Boca Raton Futures Conference, did they know it was going to be tamped down? It sure fucking seems like it, because they were talking about it and voting on the policy with the same criminal that they fined for hundreds of thousands of felonies last year. But the CFTC has no answer. George Bush doesn't have an answer. In fact, and it's interesting, you see in that video of him, the pet goat thing, he's sitting there. One of his buddies comes, whispers something in his ear, which I assume means that's when the plane got hit. And he just sits there. But he doesn't answer it. When Rumsfeld was asked 10 years later, hey, buddy, what happened with that $2 trillion missing dollar? He didn't have an answer. Nobody has an answer because they're liars. They are the criminals. These are the terrorists that took care of the Trade Center and have been trying to blame it on everybody else, the same way the Clintons, oh, look who stole the uranium. And then we found out they sold the uranium. And it's known internationally, the Russians aren't afraid to do deals with them because they say, hey, just get any asset. We know we can buy these whores. We know they're liars. We know they are criminals. Everybody knows it, and it looks like they're goddamn getting caught finally, and I'm fucking happy about it.
Oh, man.
Chris,
If that means that's the end of my YouTube channel, then I don't care. So be it. But that is what I am seeing. And if either guys have any comments on any of that, I'm happy to listen.
I think it's common when you look at, I'm going to go 20,000 foot view here and look at history. I think it's common when you look at every civilization that as that civilization ages, gets more power, the corruption increases and the lies eventually come out. And when those lies come out, the people wake up to it. And then you have this awakening, this realization that the life that you were living is not quite the life that was true. You were living in the Matrix. And now you see the Matrix for what it is. And the United States is coming to that moment, just like every major civilization before it. You saw it in Rome. You know, you saw it in Great Britain. You saw it the Spanish Empire. You saw it the ancient Assyrians. You've seen it throughout history. This is a natural course when so much power is transferred over the monetary system, political system to a small group of people. And when the political system, it's the same people all the time, the same advisors to each president, whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's the same club. It's the same group. You know, it's like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. But that's not conspiracy theory, because that has happened throughout history. Every single major superpower in history dating back 3,000 years. And so the Americans that are starting to wake up to that today, the French that woke up to it, you know, the Arabs and Middle East that woke up to it, you know, everybody's waking up to it. It's that great awakening. But that's happened over and over in history. It's just like the Matrix movie. You watch a Matrix movie and they're like, well, this is the 8th iteration of the Matrix, right? What they were trying to tell you in the movie, it's an allegory. We've seen this story before. It's just now it's us, right? And you have to learn from history and understand that this is the way things have always gone for the dominant nation state. And whatever rises after America, it's going to happen there too. Give it a couple hundred years to see the same thing. The truth that is going to come out is going to shock people. And it's going to come out in a lot of areas. It's going to come out politically, in medicine, finance sector we talk about all the time. All of the pillars that you see in a society that makes society what it is, all of the lies around that are going to come out. And you're going to see it more and more and more and more. So don't be shocked when it happens. And remember, the organ for the state is the media. The media was supposed to be, what is the fourth estate or whatever, it's supposed to be the truth tellers, but they are now captured. The financial regulators like the CFTC and Rostin Benham are captured. Anybody in any power, you know, in the United States, regulatory agency, government agency is captured. But again, that's normal. That always happens. It's not any different than what we've seen in history. So it shouldn't really be a shock to people, but you have to understand history to understand that. And if you never try to understand history, then it's going to be hard for you to wake up. It's going to be hard for you to accept that.
Andy?
And if you look, just to add to that point, you know, where was Mr. Benham Monday morning when someone in the access market sold, you know, 2 million ounces of gold before the market even opened, $4 billion worth of gold before the market even opened, just specifically to drive down the price. And when you speak of the media bought and owned, you read the Bloomberg explanation, and nowhere in there did they talk about a dumping of 2 million ounces of gold in the December futures contract at a point in time when after London closed before New York opened, in the worst opportune time, the worst time to do it, where a trader would first be fired and then shot, maybe not in that order, in the respect that that is not how you maximize return. That is specifically for effect. So where's the CFTC? And why don't you see a mainstream publication say, you know, what the hell? Why don't you see that on Jim Cramer or on CNBC or even on Fox? Why don't you see?
Andy, I can answer that for you.
Please do.
In fact, there was someone who contacted me last year this must have been 2 years ago now, after the Bart Chilton interview from CNBC. I'll leave the person nameless, but someone that I've talked to, gotten to know a little bit. And I contacted this person after Jeff Curry committed felonies lying to intentionally steal from people on behalf of Goldman Sachs. I said, does anyone know that Jeff Curry is coming on your channel and lying directly? And of course, oh, what do you mean? So I write a couple emails. Oh, I don't get it. Then sent more stuff, followed up. Said, hey, does anybody care? No answer. Never an answer. I wrote the book that CNBC, they didn't contact me for a comment, or one point seemed like they were. I mean, maybe it's the same reason that they disinvited Bill Murphy. Although on some positive news here, something I noticed interesting today, completely, you can call this conspiracy, what you want. But if you see 24.5, silver was up to 29. And I believe if we go to today, it looks like it may have gotten right below 23 into the 22 range for a second there on that spoof.
Did.
And this, again, is just something I don't know. I just found it interesting. So by all means, factor that in as you will. But, the memento. I was rereading one of Cliff High's reports from 2017, which is quite interesting. I left a video that has some highlights on this. And when you think about it, if you change the year, there's some things that these sets have similar focus, also reference a breakdown that will last for a brief period. There's somewhere in here, it talks about it will be just for a couple of hours or days, which kind of reminded me of what we had in February.
Right there, these sets have the breakdown.
Also, for a brief period, there's somewhere he gets into,
Right there.
oh yeah, these sets have a breakdown lasting perhaps a few hours, but taking days to control. Anyway, the breakdown language, this is a very complex report, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing now. Has temporal markers for prices at 22, 25, and 35. Well, we haven't seen 35 anytime lately. We've seen 25 plenty. I'll tell you what, if we saw silver in the 22s over the next couple of days, I wouldn't be surprised. If we see silver in the 22s next week or next month, I'd be pretty surprised. Andy, as the one person on tonight's call who actually was probably alive when Nixon removed us from the gold backing of the dollar, what do you I just have talked to a lot of people. I mean, I'm trying to put the tangible data points, but I've talked to a lot of people similar to me who say it's almost like they just feel something is coming. And do you think we might see something Sunday night?
It would be apropos. I mean, if you go back to the 1400s, every single major currency that ever was considered reserve or world, I don't know if you call it way back then, but the major dominant currency has never had a lifespan really in excess of 50 years. Typically, it's between 40 and 50. We're on borrowed time come Sunday. The clock strikes 12 on Sunday. So could we? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint. I think I've been expecting this seminal event for a long time. And you're right. I think even the most ardent dollar and stock bulls will tell you that something just doesn't feel right on so many levels. And, it was enough for me to move out of Minnesota to Florida because things just don't feel right on many levels. And it's not just monetary and economics. It's a lot deeper and a lot more divisive. And as far as that being the 50-year anniversary, look, we're overdue, Chris. And if it happened that day and that night, and very often things happen on Sunday night in this industry, whether it be the original Smashdown on February 1st was a Sunday night, just a couple nights ago was a Sunday night. In fact, I used to give a presentation, a PowerPoint, and I showed going back over 245 Sundays, like 197 to 245 Sundays, the market was opening lower always. 197 to 245. Now I haven't looked at that in a couple of years, but Sunday night in this industry typically is when you see the big smashdowns. I would always tell people the worst time to buy gold and silver is Friday after close, and the best time to probably buy it is Monday morning after it gets the hell beat out of it. So if you tell me something were going to happen Sunday night into Monday morning, I would say that would be the time to do it. In fact, if anything crazy happens, I think we will all wake up on a Monday morning to a new reality. So yeah, there's as good of a chance as any that it happens on a Sunday night, Monday morning.
Rob, do you think we will see anything, or what are you thinking?
It's one of those things. It's such an event that you never know because it enters the psyche of people, and no matter what you think, it affects the way people trade, the way they react. I definitely think we could see something. Will the whole system come down? I don't know. I mean, if some really important news event comes out and educates, opens people's minds to basically what has happened, sure. Banking crash, something like some sort of black swan. And it could be a financial black swan. It could be a cultural black swan. It could be anything. But definitely dates like this that are so significant can, for sure, events tend to revolve around those things. Things tend to be cyclical and come back around. And I definitely think a lot of people believe, the 15th is very important. It's the 50-year anniversary of coming off the gold standard. And that's important because currencies usually don't last that long. Pure fiat currencies don't last past 50 years. Whether that actual date, it happens on that date, or whether that is like a catalyst for the chain reaction to the very end, I don't know.
Well, you guys both mentioned unusual events, and we have a little more news. Well, it's kind of fun. It's like we're on a news channel, but telling the truth. Here, July 8th, reporter, is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable? Joe Biden, no, it is not. I guess this would be a month and 4 days later, but August 12th, Taliban is taking over Afghanistan. Biden, I will not send another generation to war in Afghanistan. I'm not trying to upset anyone in the audience, but this man disgusts me, and I think everything that he says is absolutely lying intentionally to mislead people. And when have we seen anything of him not going to war? He's bombing Syria every other day, and now all of a sudden, Taliban taking over and he's okay with it. Doesn't seem like it fits the pattern, but Rob, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Fit the pattern of, I'm sorry?
I mean, the pattern of the U.S. government officials blowing up anything they can find to put a bullseye on. And now all of a sudden, after 20 years of Taliban, right as they're releasing September 11th information, seems like is probably just not random.
No, the thing about Afghanistan, they're rich in resources. So going back to your question about what did they take while they were there? Yeah, the weapons of mass destruction weren't there. That whole thing was false, and I think people knew that at the time. But they're rich with resources. You're talking rare earths that China is interested in. You're talking about gold, silver. You're talking about oil, things like that. So, what were they doing there with the military presence? Were they protecting something that they were taking or doing deals with, to facilitate mining all those natural resources? I mean, there's a lot of reasons they could have been there. Them just coming out all of a sudden. I mean, think about what you've been hearing about Afghanistan in the news. For as long as it's been going on, it's endless. We're searching for the next guy on the list who's a terrorist, and one of our guys got blown up by an IED. We're searching for the next guy who's a terrorist. One of our guys got blown up by IED. Nothing ever got resolved. Nothing ever moved. We didn't win the hearts and minds. That was total BS. The Afghan, the Afghan people are not in better shape. We haven't improved their institutions. And all of a sudden they just disappear. Well, we hadn't moved the ball down the field, to have success there, whatever the hell success was, because I'm so confused. I don't know what the hell it ever was. So why do they just leave all of a sudden? Like you said, it's something that we don't know about, and they're done. And then how does that play into the whole narrative of all of the changing events? What is the significance of that? And what we don't know, Chris, is we have the puzzle pieces, but we don't have the box to see what it's a picture of. And so we're trying to put all this stuff together without being able to see the big picture. And we don't know this, but it is significant. Why are you there for so long and then you just disappear? And the story never changed. We never met any goals. What they said we were there was a fabrication. That's common knowledge. Everybody knows that. What's the significance of that event? I don't know. We don't know. But like you said, a lot of events seem to be happening at the same time. Then you've got the whole Nixon thing coming up. This is where if you're a political scientist or you study cultures and you study history, this is where you say this is some sort of inflection point. Where are we going? I don't know the answer because we're missing so much information, but it is some sort of inflection point. There's a big change. You see it at the top. We see the little icebergs poking out of the water. We don't see everything under the water yet, and as we begin to see more of that iceberg, eventually we're going to know, and maybe we'll hit one and the Titanic sinks. But you're right. There's so much news that we talked about today and that has been coming out that, yes, this is some sort of inflection point to something. As to what, I'd be interested to see.
Well, Rob, you could just look in the comment field. It looks like a lot of my viewers must have been watching your channel because they're pretty darn smart. John says lots of poppy in Afghanistan for the drug trade. I have a friend that I grew up with who was sent to Afghanistan. He matched that. I'd love to get him on the show sometimes. The stories he told me was incredible. Zach Shielder says opiates. Finding Keno just won himself an ounce of silver. Now, Andy, you get ready because I'm hoping you'll tell that story about how I picked you off for 150 ounces the other day. But you can look at that as the cost of your poker lesson. But Yara, can we get a nice ounce of silver to Finding Keno? In fact, start giving some more out. We have 250 ounces of silver we need to get into new hands. And Finding Keno says 7-Eleven was a part-time job. So there we go. Economic Ninja says Rob is crushing it like he always does. Economic Ninja sounds far more qualified than Ben Bernanke or Joe Biden. So yeah, it seems like people are realizing that the Afghanistan thing was a lot more about stealing drugs. So unfortunate as that may be. But anyway, we're about to get wrapped up here for tonight, although I would like to say a thank you to Andrew Pollard of BlackRock Silver, who is a sponsor to the show, and I think is going to make a lot of money after the reset is complete, or when we see some fair market pricing. Rob, I think I know we've been discussing it. I think Andrew's going to be on your show as well soon. And I think
he's coming to our conference. He'll be there August 19th and 20th at the Money Metal Summit.
That is correct. And are you familiar with BlackRock at all? Maybe have any comment, not legal financial advice, but anything that you could share about BlackRock, or maybe something you could suggest for people who want to invest in or research it on their own, where a good starting point might be?
Nevada is the best place to get gold in the US and one of the best in the world. And hell, if you're going to throw in some silver, I'm all over it. It's the best mining district in the US, period. You've got a good company, good management. There's nothing not to like about this company and what they're doing. Honestly, you look for management, you look for good jurisdiction, you look for good projects. I think they've got it all. And again, Chris and you and I have talked about this. And Andy said it. You're going to run out of above ground silver. The next best thing is to go find it in the ground. And right now the miners are cheap. I showed a chart on my channel this week. The mining indexes, the miners have not recovered anywhere near gold and silver. They're lagging gold and silver big time. And the last time that happened was right before you had the launch of gold, after the financial crisis to 2011. So it looks like the miners are about to get loose, and they're gonna pass the metals to the upside in terms of valuation. So if you're looking for the miners, you're looking for ounces in the ground, because there's not much above ground left, and you want leverage to the metal price, and you want good projects in good jurisdictions and good companies. BlackRock is something that you want to look at.
Now, Rob, that makes a lot of sense. Although I would ask you, would you still say the same thing if we were also in the midst of a global hyperinflationary Ponzi scheme in every industry of established institutional power that all appears to be unraveling at the same time? Does that change your analysis of BlackRock Silver?
No, because the mining stocks, what happens when you have a financial crash? The mining stocks go down, but temporarily. It's the reaction to everybody sell everything and go safe. But so there'd be a little temporary blip when when you have a financial issue, and then it's going to go boom straight up. That's the pattern. So no, I 100% get your physical gold and silver if you must. And then this is what I do, consult your own financial advisor. But what I do, get your physical first and then go after the miners. And the miners are bargains right now. Absolute 100% bargains. And there's a statistic that when silver in particular hits a massive bull market, almost anybody who has any silver in the ground, any resources, you're going to see value. You could see it 150 to 1 increase in a lot of these silver producers, especially the juniors.
Well, I appreciate that, Rob, and makes a lot of sense. Andy, any closing thoughts for you, sir?
I think he's spot on. I think that the mining shares are, especially the quality silver mining companies, where there's so few of them, where only 30% of all the silver in the world comes out of dedicated silver mines. To find some good ones that are producing in good jurisdictions are absolutely, I think, as good of a buy as you'll ever get. And you go back to the crash in the great 1932, 1933 crash, 29, 32 rather. When the market crashed, the number one performing stock on the entire stock exchange, I believe, was Homestake Mining. So you get a good mining company with metal in the ground, and I think absolutely it's as good of a value as you'll find anywhere right now.
And Andy, can you let folks know how they can get gold and silver, or if somebody wants to sell gold and silver, how they can do that too? And if you have a silver special for us tonight.
Actually, I got a few silver specials that we will run right now, and they can either contact us at info@milesfranklin or Arcadia at Miles Franklin. If they do contact us at info@milesfranklin, please put Arcadia in the subject line so we know that it came from this particular podcast. We have three things to offer. Number one, on 10-ounce bars, brand new CNT 10-ounce bars at $2.50 over the price of silver. And then we have three coins on special: the Britannia from the United Kingdom 2021 at $3.75 over, and the 2021 Kangaroo and the 2021 Philharmonic at $3.95 over. So we'll do all we can to make sure your listeners get the best price in the country. And whether they send it to us at info@milesfranklin or Arcadia at Miles Franklin, we'll get right back to them. Just make sure that they put Arcadia in the subject line if it is to info@Miles Franklin, please.
All righty. And Rob, can you just let folks know how they can find you and the great research that you do?
Yeah, they can just go to goldsilverpros.com. We do free content all the time on social media. We also have a subscription service if people are interested, especially if you want to look at the mining stocks or want to get deeper into what's going on financially. We do a lot of deep analysis there for people that want to pay for that. We're going to have an upcoming conference, Money Metals Summit, virtually. It's free, the 19th and 20th. Andy will be there. Chris, you will be there. Lots of other good speakers, David Morgan, Andrew McGuire, more speakers than I can think of will be there. That is last year's summit, and we do, but many of the speakers who are at last year's are going to be at this year's as well. So just look at my YouTube channel. There's a link there. You'll see Chris. We'll be on a very interesting roundtable with Dave Kranzler and James Anderson of SD Bullion. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I will be looking forward to it. It was a great time last year, and it's really been nice seeing your progress over the last year, Rob, where, you know.
Well, a lot of that is thanks to you, Chris. So I have to give you a lot of credit. The person that talked me into going on a social media, because back in the day, I was just an analyst. I was a guy that liked to write and stay in my lane and not make waves and just do my thing. And then I met Chris, and all of a sudden he's like, dude, you got to get on social media. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for one Chris Marcus. So I owe you a debt of gratitude for Chris for everything you've done for me. And a lot of the success is because of yourself and your followers and people that I've associated with through you. And I do appreciate everything that you've done.
I'd like to echo that sentiment. I tell Chris very often, there are very few people I've known in 31 years that have done as much for me personally and professionally as Chris. And I'm a big fan of you too, Rob. I tell you that all the time.
Thank
there
you.
are very few people in the industry who look at the world the way you do, analytically and big picture. And whenever I have a problem that I don't know the answer to, you're usually one of the first people I go to. So to the both of you, you both have my respect and admiration.
Well, that's certainly kind of both of you. Rob, I think you were going to do great no matter what you did. It's been a pleasure being your friend and getting to know you. Same with you, Andy. And looking forward to meeting a lot of the people watching at home at Silverfest, October 26th to 31st. I thought we'd have the hotel picked out by this week, but I was researching this stuff and I thought that was what's important. We will be somewhere in the Puerto Vallarta area. Hopefully the next week or so we'll have that landing page. It'll be fun to think what the price of silver may be by that point. And get in either case, hope everybody is doing well out there. I will keep you posted as I hear more, but hopefully tonight at least gave you a better idea of what I am hearing and seeing and thinking, why I'm hearing, seeing, and thinking it. And again, you know, you really have to decide what's right for you, but hopefully this was helpful. And Rob and Andy, thank you both for joining me, and we'll look forward to doing this again. And we will have a party Sunday night for the Open, maybe a little bit before the Open. We'll do something on Sunday night, so whether something moves in the price or not, we'll be there and having fun talking about it. And with that said, I hope everybody's doing well out there. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Night.
Be well, guys.
We are clear.